Yes, well, that was exciting stuff indeed before Des Cullen, who's actually standing, I don't know if you can see him standing over behind me there. I'm afraid it was a retirement and that whole rally adventure. Now, earlier on we were talking to Brian Harty in the Formula V section. The Formula Vs have probably the biggest grid here this weekend in the motor racing. Let's pick up the action now from the Formula Vs from the first heat of 2 today earlier on.
This is the lineup for the B race, the Dunlop Formula V race. It is Matthew Dunn from Tullamore on pole in the Shane. Alongside him is Ned Dickinson. He is from County Wicklow, also driving in a Shane. Trevor Delaney, number 46, driving a Shane as well, as on the second row of the grid alongside Mark Franey. He is also in a Shane. The first of the Leastones is car number 10, John Stapleton. He's winning the B Championship in the UK at the moment. He's alongside Carl Lennon, car number 110 in the Shane. Peter Levasse on the fourth row of the grid alongside Johnny Mahan, and Pat Cassidy and Ken Elliott make up the first 10 cars on the grid. This is a 10-lap race. With me is Declan Quigley. Declan, how do you see this race panning out?
Well, I think Matthew Dunn, coming from a fabulous motor racing family, his brother Noel, former Formula Ford champion. So Matt, certainly there's a lot of history in the family of great motorsporting success. But I think one person we've got to look out for at the very back of the grid, former Formula V champion Jerry O'Reilly. Superb driver, arrived late, had to qualify out of session. He's number 22 in a red V. He said to me just before the start of the race that if he's going to finish in the place that he's starting, then he isn't going to finish.
Well, he's got a long way to come through the field, because there's 26 cars on this grid for this 8-lap race, and 16 of these cars will qualify for the A final, which is later on today. From qualifying this morning, 10 cars went through to that A final, and we're looking for 16 cars from this race to go through to that A final. So winning, of course, is important, but they've got to make sure as well that they qualify for the A race later on today. The cars are gridding towards the back of the field. You can see the cars lining up now, and just looking out of the window here, you can see most of the cars on the way they go. First time, and Matthew Dunn has got an excellent start from the inside of the front row on pole position, but it looks like that Ned Dickinson may be losing that place as they go down towards Dublin Crystal Corner for the very first time. In fact, he has. Trevor Delaney just nips down the inside and has taken second place ahead of Mark Franey, and Ned Dickinson and a whole host of cars in a pile up at the back of the field. Well, we expected that. There was car number 59, Trevor Kinsley, one of the Shanes, just going a little bit too wide, but the leaders have got away, Declan.
Spectacular up in the air manoeuvre there from David Cassidy. I don't know whether he's a pop singer that we're suddenly discovering him after all these years, but he certainly made his mark. Just as we're coming down, he missed his braking, ran into the back of number 36 there, 96, Pat Cassidy. No relation? I wonder, is he a relation?
I don't think so, but if they were, I don't think they'll be talking much after that incident. But they're going around the STP corner for the first time in this 8-lap race, the Formula V B race this is. As I say, qualification is all the most important thing from this race. You've got to be in the top 16 to get to the A final, but of course if you're going to win this race this afternoon, it's a prestigious thing to do. I know these guys are determined to win the race here at the park. Matthew Dunn has the current lead, and he's pulled himself out about a 4 or 5 car length lead in the Shane, and in second place it is Trevor Delaney in the second of the Shanes, but the battle is really going on for second place here, Declan.
Ned Dickinson paying for that bad start. Trevor Delaney, his immaculate Shane, is to a certain extent, at this stage anyway, holding up the field, so it'll be interesting to see whether Ned Dickinson and then Mark Franey's also behind him. On the outside in the Laystone, we've got the Englishman John Stapleton. He's coming down on the outside. Not really the way to go.
Well, they're going into Dublin Crystal Corner. Our leader has gone through already, Matthew Dunn, and just going a little bit wide is John Stapleton. He is that Laystone in the middle of the Shane sandwich, because most of these cars up at the front of the grid are actually built by David Shane. The lone Leastone you can see there, the yellow car number 10, just tucking into 5th place overall, is John Stapleton. He's being run by Paul Heavey in the UK. Paul Heavey constructed these Leastone cars down in Naas in County Kildare. As I say, he's running John in the B Championship in the UK at the moment, but he's losing places now as they go down to STP corner. Our leader is still Matthew Dunn around this very, very tight right-hander. You're almost coming back on yourself, and one or two cars touched there. That was Stapleton just getting a little nudge. One of the cars on the inside there. Matt Franey, I think, is dropping down the field all the way. That pink car that started, car number 18 on the second row of the grid. He's losing positions all the way, and I think he just came across that accident and was just lost a few places.
All the cars just concertinaed, bunched up into that incredibly bumpy corner, and they were absolutely stuck still. One of the white a car in front of him, a Shane, a white car, I couldn't exactly see who it was, totally held up Mark. He was going so well, he's out of it now.
Well, this is the second lap of 8. You can see it once again, Declan.
Yes, I mean, it's like I say, it's so bumpy, it's very difficult to judge your braking point. That car 103, 109, I think it might have been Peter Labatt, his brother Ronnie was a former Formula Atlantic.
Oh!
Oh!
Well, that is the end spectacularly of Ned Dickinson's race. He's up on his roof down at Dublin Crystal Corner. That is an incredible incident there at the start of lap 2. That took us totally by surprise. It took his braking far too late, and he went flying over the top of that car and ended up on his roof. Hopefully everything is okay. You see what happens again here, Declan.
Well, that's always the problem with open wheeler racing. His right front just touches with Trevor Delaney's left rear. Once the wheels interlock, it's very difficult. He goes right over the top of Trevor's car. Let's hope that Ned's okay. The safety crews will be tending to him. There's a lot of runoff down there, so I'm hoping that he didn't actually make contact with anything. They're superbly safe cars. Fingers crossed everything's okay for Ned.
Yes, you will see that the roll cars at the top of the car there, Matthew Dunn's car especially coming through there, will hopefully have saved him from any injury. That was a spectacular moment there. Trevor Delaney was just leaving his braking a little bit too late coming into Dublin Crystal Corner, and Ned Dickinson absolutely flew over the top of him and up onto his roof. But it seems like the race is continuing. There was a big run-up area, as you were saying there, Declan, and it looks like the race is continuing. John Stapleton gets very, very wide. Very, very wide. Just looking down on the main straight, the red flag is out. You can see Matthew Dunn has got his hand in the air. Well, that incident between Trevor Delaney and Ned Dickinson is always going to be one fraught with danger. The marshals decided that it's not a good place to be. He's on the runoff area, of course, just down towards Dublin Crystal Corner, and of course somebody else goes off, he just plough into him. So the safety crews will be heading down towards that neck of the woods to make sure that Ned Dickinson was all right. But that was some moment, Declan.
Some moment. We're just going to see it again. You see Ned slews under braking, goes into Trevor. It's really difficult to call. To me, it's just a racing incident, but you know, once you're touching wheel on wheel, anything can happen. And I'm just delighted that there was no problem for Trevor, and fingers crossed that everything's okay for Ned. But when in doubt, always stop the race. This is, we have to remind ourselves, this is a dangerous sport. Single-seater racing especially is, you know, extremely dangerous. And I think in this situation, the best thing to do was discretion is the better part of valor. Stop the race, give them some time to turn the car. The marshals, the Motor Racing Marshals Club of Ireland safety team there, working away to, they have a procedure that they will be following. They're stabilizing Ned, they're holding his head. We can see that that's just routine, that's procedure.
Yeah, he's moving around in the car, which is a good good indication that everything is okay. This reminds me of the Ed O'Connor incident last year. He's waving to the crowd there, so he seems to be all right. He's eager to jump out of the car, but I think the marshals and the doctors are doing the sensible thing here. They're getting to sit in the car just to make sure that everything's all right. They'll take his helmet off and just make sure that everything is all right with him. They're not too concerned about the car. They can cut the car open if they want, but he seems to be okay. He'd just be a little bit shook up, I think. But I was saying it may be a little bit similar to the Ed O'Connor incident last year here at the park, when he went shooting down the inside of Paul Heavey, and again he landed up on his roof, but he was okay. But there seems to be no problem there for Ned Dickinson, thankfully.
So often we see this in single-seater racing, but it looks as if Ned's okay. He's protesting that he's fine. They're insisting that he stays in, but that's procedure. The venerable Ned Dickinson, he's a stalwart competitor. He was involved in Formula V from the very early days. A Wicklow man, good friend of David Shane, who introduced this class to Ireland back in the 70s. And I think he got a bit of a shock there, but it looks as if he's okay, so that's a great relief.
This is the re-grid now for the restarted Formula V B race. We're thankful to report that Ned Dickinson is none the worse for the wear. He actually climbed into the ambulance after that terrific crash, if you want to call it that, or spectacular crash with Trevor Delaney, but he seems to be okay, and also Trevor Delaney. But Delaney is now back in the race, thankfully, and he is on the third row of the grid, we think, as they are re-gridding at the end of the second lap. It'll be a 5-lap race in aggregate then, Declan, of the 2 races. But Matthew Dunn stayed well out of that incident, and he's on the front row of the grid once again.
That's right, they're re-gridding based on the finishing order of the previous lap, so this isn't actually the finishing order at the time that they red flagged the race. A little bit confusing, but I think things will start to establish themselves. As you can see, there's an awful lot of work down there to try and get cars moved back up to the front, back to the back, and it's all a bit of chaos at the moment. But I noticed that Jerry O'Reilly seems to be poking his nose into midfield. We know that Jerry started at the back of the grid. He's working his way up. Number 22 in the red car, keep an eye out for him. He's got the benefit of a new start and a new opportunity to work his way up.
That's Matthew Dunn, as you can see on the front row of the grid, and that's Jerry O'Reilly, who we're talking about. He's a former Formula V champion, and Declan said he raced or practiced in isolation this morning, did 3 laps, but they're putting him way to the back of the grid, so he has to work his way through the back of the field. In fact, he's starting from the very, very back of the grid. So, as Declan was saying, they're gridding these cars according to how they finished the previous lap, and they're racing for 5 laps, and the aggregate then of the 2 laps will actually determine who wins this race. As I say, qualifying is utmost importance in this race. They've got 16 chances or 16 places to go through to the final.
Do you know, John, as I look at it, I think they might have changed their mind. They're leaving a gap where Ned Dickinson was. The second row is as it was. It's Trevor Delaney and Mark Franey, and Jerry O'Reilly's right at the very back. I think we've got ourselves a brand new car race over a shortened distance to take account of the less. You could well
be right, absolutely, yes, because as you say, they didn't grid them as according to the lap before. That wasn't actually transmitted to us, so we have to go with what we've got. And on the front row of the grid, it is our pole sitter Matthew Dunn in the shade. Ned Dickinson is not there anymore. This is a 5-lap race. We're looking now towards the tricolour being dropped, and away they're going. A second now, and away they go down towards Dublin Crystal Corner. A 5-lap race, and tucking in the second place is Trevor Delaney, but Dunn again has got the best start in the Shane. A 5-lap race, as I say, is ahead towards Dublin Crystal Corner for the very first time. Hopefully some of that shenanigans was going on the first lap. One of those cars locking up there at the back of the field, I think it was Peter Levass, car number 103, but they've all got through safely this time.
Well, Matthew had the front row to himself. He made the most of that advantage. Sometimes it's not so easy to make 2 good starts in a row, but he certainly did it. Trevor Delaney's right with him. Mark Franey holding up that small gap. Look at John Stapleton in the Laystone monstering the Shane. And we see Jerry Riley working his way up through the field. He's probably made up 4 or 5 positions there.
Yes, he needs to get into the top 16, as I say, to qualify for the final a little bit later on today. Lots of squealing of brakes as they go down to STP Corner, or the Furdy Glen isn't known, but everybody seems to be falling around and getting around. Everybody seems to be doing exactly that as our leader comes down the Rathdown Motor Straight heading towards Dunlop Corner. This is a 5-lap race, and Matthew Dunn, who started on pole in the Shane, has pulled out a lead about 4 or 5 car lengths. The battle's going on for second place, and Matt Franey there gets it all wrong, gets pushed a little bit wide by Trevor Delaney, and he went up over the curbs. As you can see, the Fees Park has these curbs, of course, because it is a public place, and that was a very dangerous moment, but he did very well to keep it on the track, didn't he?
Well, that would have cooled Mark's ardour there. He won't have liked that. He was up on the pavement at one of the quickest parts of an extremely fast circuit. But it hasn't stopped him for 1 minute. He's running right down the outside into the first corner. They're looking at each other under braking. Who's going to tough it out the most? Trevor Delaney had the inside line. That's what counted.
Yes, Franey did get a bit of a slingshot coming down the main straight. You can have a look at that incident once again, Declan.
Well, he goes to the inside of Trevor. Trevor moves over to defend the position. There just isn't enough room there. Again, it's left front versus right rear. The guy behind is always going to suffer in that sort of situation because those are the wheels that are actually steering. Incredible car control from Mark to actually hold it. He's the technical director of Shane Cars down in Wicklow. Mark is certainly knows his product there. He did a great job.
He certainly does, and he's battling again for a second place against Trevor Delaney. This is a terrific scrap. Dunn, of course, will be the beneficiary of this as the cars battle on behind. I think he lost his nose cone there. Lost his nose cone as he just tried to go down the inside of the right-hand side of the road. You'll just see it as we come out now. Yes, Mark Franey has lost his nose cone, but that shouldn't affect it because the aerodynamics of this car isn't affected too much by losing a nose cone. Myself and Declan actually have raced these cars before, and the aerodynamics aren't so much in play. It's power that what you need, and he seems to have plenty of power. It's a real good battle for second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth place. John Stapleton in the middle of that as well. He's driving the yellow car, the Laystone. He's currently in fourth in car number 10.
Titanic scrap, and I see Carl Lennon has joined it as well. The Formula VC champion. He dabbled in Formula Opel at the end of last year. He hasn't been racing, but the Kart City car, he certainly hasn't lost his edge, and he's right with John Stapleton, challenging down the outside of the first corner. Look at Mark Franey going down the outside again. Has he left his braking too late? Oh, John Stapleton looks like he has a run.
Yeah, that was a good move from John Stapleton there. He just waited. That was Peter Levass just disappearing into the trees there. You can see 3 laps to go in this 5-lap shortened race because of that second corner incident between Ned Dickinson, second lap incident between Ned Dickinson and Trevor Delaney. Delaney is straight out of the track, but John Stapleton, clever manoeuvre there, just waited to see what happened between Franey and Delaney. And Stapleton, you can see the yellow car number 10 is all over the back of Delaney as they go into STP Corner.
Matthew Dunn will be loving this. These guys are holding themselves up. It's he's getting what amounts to a Titanic huge gap in Formula V. It's always a close stuff, but we haven't got any changes. Well, we see John Stapleton obviously has got ahead of Mark Franey, but I don't think it's all over yet.
It certainly is not. This is a really good battle between, as you say, the likes of Lennon, which is the car at the back of that little train there. Also Delaney. John Stapleton just moves over to the left-hand side now as they go around the Dunlop corner and back onto the main straight. Once again, he's trying to get a slingshot down the inside. Our leader comes through. 2 laps to go at the end of this one. Delaney's now in second place, and they flash by our commentary box here. John Stapleton will try around the outside, the left-hand side, or will he try and go down the inside? Franey decides this time he's going to try to get down the inside. This could all come to grief as they go towards Dublin Crystal Corner. 3 cars in the line. Stapleton goes around the outside. That's a terrific manoeuvre from John Stapleton. He's got second place.
Superb stuff.
Superb stuff.
He can't go around the outside. It's the longer route, but he left his braking fractionally later than Trevor Delaney. Trevor's been doing a great defensive job, but John scooted in, turned in, trusted to God, and it worked. But Trevor Delaney has a run right down the outside. As I say, he's braking just that little bit later. We see Trevor looking across at him going, oh no, I should have braked later. John turns in, has just enough room, holds it on the exit. Superb stuff.
Yes, I think Delaney's got back up to second place again. It's a little bit of power, I think, the extra power in this chain as compared to the Leastone, and it's just a little clip behind, and Stapleton has lost his front nose cone, and he gets lodged up in the back wheel of Trevor Delaney, and Trevor Delaney's losing places all over the place. That's holding himself up, and Franey puts his hand in the air. His race is run. Well, that's dramatic, and Lennon is now up to second place. Well, what a race we're having here for second place. Matthew Dunn disappearing up the road. That was incredible stuff going into STB corner.
How quickly that happened. I think Trevor Delaney must have missed a gear. He seems to be running okay now, but that just totally wrecked John Stapleton. He ran into the back, lost his nose cone, and at the very same time we saw the left front wheel of Mark Franey's car flap loose. I wonder if that was a legacy of his early touch on the back straight.
Well, incredibly, David Parks has come up to second place on the grid after starting on the 6th row of the grid in 12th place overall. He waited and waited and waited. You can see just one of the cars we mentioned earlier on as well, number 22, Jerry O'Reilly. He's just smoking up the brakes to go into Dublin Crystal Corner. He's now to 4th place overall. Well, while the battle between Delaney, Stapleton, Lennon and the other cars and Franey was going on there, it was David Parks, one of 3 Parks racing here in the park this afternoon in the Formula V race, who moved up, and little hand in the air there from Carl Lennon. He just says to David Parks, you're not keeping the racing line. Well, I think they might have a little difference of opinion. This is our leader, who's been way out in front compared to the rest of them, because of course, as Declan was saying, they're all holding each other up. They're going into STB corner once again. This is David Parks in the Shane, around ahead of another Shane driven by Carl Lennon. He's in 3rd place, and right from the very back row of the grid up to 4th place, as you predicted rightly, Jerry O'Reilly in the Shane.
David Parks, a young competitor. He's only done a couple of seasons of Formula V. Carl Lennon, also not very experienced, a former karter, but he's a canny driver. I notice he has the inside line up into this next corner. I'll watch for Jerry O'Reilly. We talk about canny Carl Lennon. This guy knows everything. He'll be watching and looking at that. We're out on the last lap, coming out of Mountjoy corner. Jerry O'Reilly's up the inside of David Parks. Carl Lennon, but the winner of the race, Matthew Dunn. Superb performance.
One of the cars spinning in the background there, but won't worry, Matthew Dunn, he's won the race. Second place would appear to have been Carl Lennon in second place. Jerry O'Reilly was very close to taking 3rd place there, ahead of David Parks, who had a superb race from the 6th row of the grid to take the 3rd place on, or maybe 4th place on the road. Let's have a look at this again once again, Declan, in STB corner.
Trevor Delaney was running well at the end of the race, so I can only think that he missed a gear. John Stapleton was just so close to him that he runs up the back of him. Mark Franey ran over the right rear of just John Stapleton's car. That wrecked his left front. He lost that. So suddenly Carl Lennon bounces into second place. Mark Franey with his hand up. His chance is over. Devastating stuff. Just a lap to go.
Well, that was a terrific race. Matthew Dunn won the race in the Shane, but he was way ahead of the rest in that battle for second place. That's the result. Matthew Dunn from Tullamore wins in the Shane. Second was Carl Lennon, and we think Jerry O'Reilly moved up from the very back of the grid to take 3rd place.
Yes, dramatic stuff there in the Formula V race. We have more Formula V action later on here at the Phoenix Park, but right now, forming the grid